Hello, okay, first off, before I dive into my review for Doctor Strange, I do apologise, it's been a while since I've actually uploaded a video to my channel, but I'm still here, and it's a bit late, well I think it's a bit late anyway. I think I seen Doctor Strange about 2 to 3 weeks ago, I think. Here's my review for Marvel's latest installment in the cinematic universe, and that is Doctor Strange. So, Doctor Strange, directed by Scott Derrickson. Now, the only film I think I've actually seen of his, he directed The Day the Earth Stood Still, the remake, the 2008 remake. So, this is a spoiler-free review, so don't worry if you haven't seen it yet. I will not be giving any plot points away, or twists or turns or surprises. I'm going to start with saying Benedict Cumberbatch. Now, I love this actor, especially his voice. I'm really sort of, and I really like his voice. Obviously, he's the voice of Smaug in the Hobbit trilogy, or I say the last two films anyway. And I just really liked his voice in those, and I like him in almost everything I've seen. I loved him in Star Trek. But Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, I think I really liked his performance. I mean, I've never really been disappointed when I've seen Cumberbatch in any of his roles, really. I've never been disappointed by his performance. I thought he delivered a really good performance as this doctor, a very sort of, can you say, arrogant, ignorant, cocky doctor. And you do end up, well, I did anyway, I actually really disliked this character for the first, say, 30 to 40 minutes. I really disliked Doctor Strange. But say that, I've never actually read the comics. I've never read the Doctor Strange comics, so I was kind of going into this blind. I didn't really know this sort of side of the Marvel universe, you could say. But I was very intrigued. It looked promising, as in it could be very different to what we've already had with Marvel, because one of my biggest gripes with Marvel at the moment is nothing so much towards the films, because the films have been all pretty good. They've been okay to pretty good. But that's because they play it very safe. Yeah, I feel like they're almost as if they're afraid to take risks. And I think it's getting to a point where this formula, which does work, but for me personally, I'm getting a little bit bored of the formula, and I think a little bit of that formula is still evident in Doctor Strange. But this character being so kind of different to what we've already had so far, this film at the same time also has a certain sort of element of freshness to it, you could say. Still retains a sort of, the Marvel formula, but it's also different enough to keep it to, for it to have a little bit of a freshness to it. Because, I mean, there were things in this film that they did, and I was like, yeah, fair play, I mean, there were scenes that were obviously, you could tell by the trailers, are very Inception-like, but, and there are a lot of sort of psychedelic scenes, you could say, and, there's one moment, again, I'm not going to say anything, so don't worry, but there's a moment in this film, I would say, coming up towards the halfway point where Doctor Strange himself is first introduced into this world, the supernatural world, and it's a very sort of tripped out, kind of very trippy moment, and it's almost as if you're thinking, shit, did they put acid in that Coca-Cola that I'm drinking out of, because it is like that, and I like that. But yeah, going back to Benedict Cumberbatch, yeah, I thought he was quite good, and I like the sort of character arc that he had. That was quite nice as well. I would also say, like, I've seen this, like I said previously, I've seen this film about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I've only seen it once, so I am kind of, like, I can remember the film. The film is still quite fresh in my head, because I did really enjoy this film. I found it a very enjoyable film, and but I do fancy that, from what I can remember, this was I think probably Marvel's most brutal film. Maybe there was one particular scene, I'd say, coming towards the last act, and involving a certain character, And I was like, whoa. I mean, it's a very quick sort of scene, a very whatever happen, what happens is very quite quick. But I thought it was quite a brutal, and I fancy this is probably one of Marvel's most brutal films, as in what they actually in regards with what you actually see on the screen. The soundtrack, I really, really like the soundtrack. It has a sort of Eastern feel about it, which obviously it kind of goes with the sort of mystic, supernatural side of a character, and I really, really like that. And I really liked what they did with the climax. I think probably the most different. If there was something I could pick about this particular film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that was the most different out of all the other films, and that is its climax. It was quite different, and at first it was like, oh, but once I've come out of the film and I thought about it, I was like, yeah, do you know what? I really like that. I mean, it was different. It's not what your typical sort of action packed. Don't get me wrong, there is action, but it's the way they did the sort of the climatic ending. I mean, I'm trying my hardest not to say too much because I don't want to give anything away at all. But it was very, very different. Just put it that way. And yeah, I really liked it. There were some scenes that kind of bugged me a little bit, and it's the scenes where he has these outer moments where he comes out of the body, Doctor Strange, and you can see his body, and I can't actually remember what that is actually called. It's like sort of like an out of body experience, and there's a particular scene in the halfway point where it involves him and another character in this out of body sort of experience, and I just didn't like it. I mean, it looked just a bit too CGI. It just didn't feel real, and it had no weight. And I was just watching this scene play out, and it just felt very, very empty. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, but that's how I felt about that certain scene. Now, the one thing that I was hoping with the villain, I was hoping the villain would be different as well, as in have actually a bit more depth to him, have a bit more meaning to him. Have this sort of reason, and to truly understand this villain and his reasons to why he's doing what he's doing. And do you know what? This film almost sort of achieves it. I think this was probably one of the most intriguing villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. Still doesn't quite hit the mark that I wanted it to. I mean, they could have done a lot more with him. You could have gone a bit more behind his past, and you could have had a lot more depth to him, because he is still kind of your generic sort of Marvel villain. I mean, and that was about it. But there was a certain moment in this film. There's a scene of him sort of getting a little bit of emotional, and kind of just saying why explaining in a way why he's doing what he's doing, and I liked that. And I thought, Marvel are really kind of changing it up a little bit, because I do feel like when it comes to the villains in these films, they are a little bit 2D cardboard cutout. But this have a tiny little bit of depth added, but just not enough, really. And again, I think like with the other Marvel films, I think one of the strongest villains out of them all, but still a little bit weak. I really enjoy Doctor Strange. It's not without his problems. I watched this in 4DX, and I really enjoyed it in 4DX, especially the fight scenes. I really, really like the fight scenes in this film as well. Oh, and I gotta mention the Cloak. I kind of liked the Cloak. I kind of liked what they did to the Cloak, but then someone else mentioned to me after the film that it reminded them of, I think it's My Favorite Martian. Correct me if I'm wrong below. I think that's what it's called. A film, I believe, from the late 90s. Again, I can't remember, but that had a suit in it that was sort of like alive, and I was like, oh. So it's like I might look at this Cloak a different way now when I see the film, but no, I kind of liked the Cloak, and there was some funny comedic moments involving the Cloak. But when it comes to comedic moments, that's one thing that Marvel really hit the nail on the head with and that's getting the right balance of humour. I mean, they've got it spot on when it comes to that. So yeah, I enjoyed Doctor Strange, but it still had its problems for me. It still just wasn't quite different enough. Don't think it's quite as good as Captain America: Winter Soldier and Civil War, but it was an enjoyable experience, and I would actually recommend you see it in 4DX as well, a format that I really did not think that I would actually take to, but because depending on the film, I think it's a very, very good experience, 4DX. So I will be giving my grade for Doctor Strange a B+. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. What did you like? What did you think about Doctor Strange? Do you agree with my views? Do you agree with my grade? Let me know below what you thought of Doctor Strange. My next review, which will be straight after this, will be Arrival. I'm looking forward to bringing you my opinion of that very, very, very good and very important science fiction film. So yeah, I'll be seeing you guys soon.